sniping, you know, at something. So obviously, PBS, I think BBC was so successful that they developed a bit of an arrogance. So maybe they're simply not ready to be cognizant of the fact that they have to be more conscious about not showing their internal political biases, because that's what it's all about. We all carry political baggage with us, but it should not determine what news gets on. That should be all right.
Isn't it true, looking at what has happened in the Middle East and looking at how people have heralded Al Jazeera's coverage of it, that there still is a place for what you might call, or what Secretary Clinton called, the old media? What do you think, Abdullah Schleifer?
I think there is a place. And even if there's a two-tier system developing, as Tom mentioned, we have a moral obligation as broadcasters or print journalists to provide the best. And I think it's tragic that people now have to settle, and this is even creeping in to Al Jazeera, but nothing like American television. The basic information always came from field reports, where the journalist, the reporter would go out in the field. He had time to shoot a story, to compose a script. And although it certainly would not have the depth of, let's say, a print magazine, it does mean the great audience would see a television report that had drama, but at the same time had 2 or 3 minutes of information. Instead of today...
All right. Charlie, do you agree with that?
Well, I think Al Jazeera is a unique model, and obviously it's gaining relevance because it has an area of expertise. I'm not going to know the Middle East as well as someone that comes from the Middle East. So right now, when you have Egypt, Tunisia, Libya, etc. going on, then yes, it's the natural to turn to, whereas I don't see Al Jazeera is going to be popping up in the ratings when it comes to the arguments going on over funding in Wisconsin or the next American presidential election, or the primaries that will be coming up in the next 6 months. But, you know, we are living in a smaller world now, and broadcasting is not what it was in the 70s. You didn't need, you know, guys developing film, etc. You can set up Press TV, for instance. The Iranian station, you don't need the budget nowadays to set up these organizations, or CCTV, or the Russians, etc. They may not be as good as Al Jazeera, but it can be done. So the model is changing, and people will have, broadcasters will have to cope with that.
And the final question of Tom Fenton. Are broadcasters in the US really coping with it? Are they changing with the times?
No, indeed, they're not. You know, for a while after 9/11, I thought maybe they would. All of a sudden, the budgets were torn up. People were sent out to the field. I remember going to Pakistan and Afghanistan and going to Germany, visiting the mosques there. But they simply ran out of interest, or ran out of money, or didn't have enough people to keep it up. It is so thin now. Each of the 3 big American terrestrial broadcasters have just a handful of full-time correspondents to cover the world. They don't have the troops anymore. And there's no interest there that I can see in reopening all the foreign bureaus that have been closed. You know, they closed down Moscow, they closed down even Tel Aviv, which was sort of unclosable and untouchable for a long time. I see no idea at all, no interest in changing that. And yet somehow it must change if the public is going to be informed.
All right, we'll leave it there now. We'll have to thank our guests at this point. Tom Fenton from London, Abdullah Schleifer from Cairo, and Charlie Wolf, also from the British capital. Thank you all for joining us here. Thank you, the viewer, for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. As always, we welcome your comments and suggestions. Email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. For now, it's goodbye.
If you're a Nokia user, you can download Al Jazeera's news widget from Nokia's Ovis store. The news widget, available on compatible Nokia devices, gives users quick and easy access to real-time news updates from Al Jazeera English. See the world in real time. Al Jazeera Mobile.
From local traders to international finance, it's commerce that makes the world go round. For global companies and developing markets, communication is the currency, and information is the most valuable commodity. Counting the cost at this time on Al Jazeera.
احنا الجزيرة الإنجليزية عم نسأل الناس ليش جايين اليوم.
Wherever the news, whatever the story. Al Jazeera.
What Gaddafi has done, he dismantled or destroyed the system in the country.
As chaos and violence sweep across Libya.
They're living through fear, they're living through a nightmare.
They're using ammunition, live ammunition.
Al Jazeera hears from those who have lived in fear of Gaddafi's regime.
We don't want him to leave. We want to arrest him. 42 years is too much.
Libya, a state of terror. At this time on Al Jazeera.
Homes have crumbled and many buildings have been left just empty shells.
Tensions are high. Riot police trying to control thousands of Greek protesters on the streets of Athens.
A British court has approved the go-ahead for WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange to be extradited.
The Gaddafi is waging a war against the Libyan people. They are killing civilians mercilessly. They're using ammunition, live ammunition.
All the news, all the time. AlJazeera.net/English.
Setting their sights on Sirte, anti-Gaddafi fighters move in onto the Libyan leader's hometown. Rebels lay claim to another critical oil hub, but cash from Ras Lanuf continues to line the regime's coffers. I'm Anand Nadi. You're watching Al Jazeera live from Doha. Also ahead, Egyptian demonstrators call for its secret police headquarters to be demolished in Cairo. And growing instability in Côte d'Ivoire prompts the United Nations to send in another 2,000 peacekeepers. It's just gone 3 o'clock in the morning in Libya, where the country's embattled leader, Muammar Gaddafi, has said that the violence taking place in his country must be investigated by either the United Nations or the African Union. This as forces loyal to him are fighting hard to hold on to their territory by pushing the opposition fighters out. Scores of people have died in the latest clashes. Now anti-regime gunmen are trying to advance towards Gaddafi's hometown of Sirte. Let's run through the very latest. The rebel-controlled city of AlJazeera came under heavy shelling from pro-Gaddafi forces on Saturday. Tanks were seen on the city's outskirts. A local doctor told Al Jazeera that up to 15 people were killed in the latest violence, while medical supplies are running dangerously low. But in the capital Tripoli, a very different picture is being presented. State television broadcast interviews of residents going about their normal lives. Many lashed out at the foreign media, saying they were distorting the situation in Libya.